right, welcome to the podcast. This is a previously recorded / Harry Potter and the Half Drunk podcast crossover. That is a mouthful. I am RP, and I am the host of Previously Recorded, and I'm joined by Emily and Sam from the Half Drunk podcast. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. So I thought it would be cool to do a crossover episode for our top 10 Harry Potter characters because, like Emily and Sam, who are huge Harry Potter fans, I'm also one. And it's always cool to hear from other Potterheads. So we have our list that we made, and we're gonna compare them. We're gonna discuss why these characters are where they are, and hopefully at the end come up with a cohesive, maybe like top 5. Possibly.
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get there.
I don't know.
We'll so hard.
Maybe if we could agree to get maybe a top 1, just agree on our number 1. I think maybe that's a good start, like stepping stone right there.
Yeah, we'll see.
I'd be more realistic, to be honest, though. So
yeah, all right. So I thought it'd be cool if we started off with our houses. I am a Gryffindor. Emily and Sam, if you guys want to say what your houses are.
I'm Emily. For our listeners, you already know that, but for previously recorded listeners, hello. I am a Ravenclaw.
Very nice.
Yep. And I'm Sam, and I am a very, very proud Hufflepuff.
Yeah, you
are. Very nice. My other two co-hosts, Bob and Shane. Bob's a Gryffindor, and Shane is a very proud Hufflepuff as well.
Oh, love it.
They're coming out in flocks. I feel like more and more people are embracing the Hufflepuff.
Yeah, it was Eddie Redmayne. It was definitely Fantastic Beasts that made being a Hufflepuff more of like an acceptable and badass trait to have.
I definitely agree, and we might have gotten a setback from Crimes of Grindelwald, but that's another discussion.
Don't even get us started on that.
Don't even get us started.
No, he is definitely not responsible for that movie. So I also thought it'd be cool to talk about your books and your favorite movie. Yeah. I don't know if you guys want to start first. Just like name your favorite book and movie.
Okay. Well, my favorite book is The Prisoner of Azkaban.
Nice.
It always has been. My favorite movie used to be the last two together because I qualify those as one movie.
That's fair.
But since we're doing like a reread and rewatch, the first one actually is my favorite movie just because of the nostalgia factor. Yeah.
Wow. I don't think
that not right now. It changes like the wind, but
this is a new development you neglected to share with me.
It's the one thing you don't know about me, Sam.
Wow.
All right. We are doing a reread, and if you're one of our listeners, then you know that we've been doing these deep dives back into the series, and I've always said that my favorite movie is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban because of its direction, and that still holds true right now. We'll see if that changes after we continue doing our deep dive. And I've always said that my favorite book was Deathly Hallows, so kind of the opposite of Emily's answers.
Yeah.
But now I don't know, like rereading Prisoner of Azkaban, it's such a stellar story that
such a good book.
It might be. We'll see at the end. I'm not going to give a definitive answer. It's either 7 or possibly 3.
Fair enough. My favorite movie might be. I've heard this is somewhat controversial in terms of people who are big books fans, like big Harry Potter book fans, is Goblet of Fire.
Oh, I thought you were gonna. Oh my god, I thought you were gonna say Half-Blood Prince.
No, I know you got to take
that. I'm out of here. I'm done.
No, I know there's a thing missing from Half-Blood Prince, and it's called a plot.
Yeah, it's called a plot.
But my favorite book is Half-Blood Prince. I love the character development in that. To me, they become like teenagers. They're going through that teenage like angst and the romance, and they're kind of just growing up a little bit. It turns from all the other shit that happens in like 4 and 5. I just always really enjoyed that aspect of it, and all the Voldemort backstory and all the Horcruxes and stuff.
Yeah, I think that's when shit like gets actually real. Like it was always kind of real, but now it's like the Horcruxes and everyone is kind of dying type of real.
And Ginny's a badass in that book too.
And
But
he
Really
is
is.
such a badass. He's just so beautiful.
They did her so dirty for the movies. Oh, so
she's non-existent in the movie. She's just there as Harry's love interest.
She's dull.
creepy in the movies.
She has no personality.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's a soapbox that I will probably hop back on later in this episode.
That is fair because I'm all with you on that one. But yeah, I love the sixth one, and I wish they did the movie justice, and they didn't. So that's that.
All right.
Okay, so I think it would be good to start with 10 and work down to 1. That's what we usually do. Also, I forgot to mention, so for our previously recorded listeners, Emily and Sam, they have a drink for every episode that they record, just like us. They get their drinks are cooler than what we do. We just drink straight beer. So I asked them what would be the best choice for this episode, and they told me to do butterbeer, and it is delicious. If you've been to Universal, it tastes exactly like the shit from down there. It's incredible. So thank you guys.
Of course,
no-
it's very
no
dangerous though.
Yes,
It will get you.
definitely understandable. Okay, so if we want to, I think we should dive into and start with number 10. I do want to mention, actually, one of the reasons the way we started our podcast was ranking lists, and then we kind of moved to more of a discussion-based podcast. Was a top 25 IGN Harry Potter character list that was god-awful. We were like, we need to correct this. So I think before we start, I want to run off some of their awful ones. They had Dobby at 25, and then above Dobby, they had Grindelwald at 24.
What?
Yeah, right?
Oh my god, good thing you brought on the experts.
Exactly, because this list is terrible. Then they had Mad-Eye Moody above Molly Weasley, which I'm kind of okay with, but right at 19. But at 18, they had McGonagall at 18. And I think that is a injustice. And they had Umbridge in front of McGonagall.
Oh, God.
Yeah, and they even had Albus Severus Potter on here at 21. It's a rough list. So yeah, what we're going to do in this episode is correct that. What IGN did, ignore it.
Okay.
So so let's start with number 10. I'll let you guys go first. Who do you guys have coming in at number 10?
I'll go first. I have Snape for number 10. I have a love-hate relationship with him, but I think he is one of the most dynamic characters of the series just because he was a secret agent and was very instrumental in Harry's success, so he has to make the list in some capacity, although I still think he's a dick.
He is such a dick.
He's so abusive for no reason. But
yeah, I'm kind of surprised actually that you have him at 10. I would have expected higher.
No.
Actually, so I'm curious to see.
I'm shocked that he made her list.
What, Sam?
I said I'm shocked that he even made your list.
Yeah, honestly, like, I don't buy into the whole always.
After all this time. Always.
Snape was a good person thing, so I'm surprised he made my list too. But he did. He was very dynamic, so.
Yeah, I love the whole always thing. I do, but it's like he was a fucking asshole for like 6 books. So
there's no redemption in the fact that he was so abusive for literally 6 years. And then he's just like, well, I was actually in love with your mom, so that's forgiven. Like, no, it's not.
That's why he is. Yeah.
So my number 10 is Dobby.
Great choice.
Number 10 because I feel like he is more integral to the series than a lot of people may realize, especially if they've only seen the movies, which is a lot of people. But even if you have only just seen the movies, Dobby still plays a major role in Harry's life. Like when we're first introduced to Dobby, he's super annoying, little ugly pest type thing, and he's trying to stop Harry from going back to Hogwarts.
Dobby has to protect Harry Potter, to warn him. Harry Potter must not go back to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry this year.
And you're like, what the fuck are you doing, dude? Like, quit. Like, he's trying to go back home for all intents and purposes. And really, all Dobby is trying to do is what Dobby is always trying to do, which is pretty much save Harry's ass and help him any way that he can. And like even after Harry gives him or tricks Malfoy into giving Dobby a sock, Dobby was always Harry's like loyal, dedicated advocate like for life. And he is always saving their asses until it leads to him losing his own life. So I feel like he's just a really underrated MVP. And if his stats didn't shake you to your core as a Potter fan, you've
You're
done him
heartless.
a disservice.
Yeah, I agree. His death alone is saving Harry and the gang's ass.
Right.
So
Like, his entire arc is just saving Harry all the time.
Yep. Like a lot of people too. But I actually also have him at 10. So
Oh, nice.
for
Your
basically
time.
basically all the same reasons. He's a fan favorite, gets left out of the movies, but he's instrumental in 4, 5. Yeah, so I love. Is 5's the spoof stuff, or does that happen in 4?
That's in 5.
That's what I thought in 5, and I love him in 5 when he's like wearing all the hats and like all that stuff. So basically, for everything that Sam said, I agree. At Dobby would be my number 10. Emily, is Dobby on your list at all?
He was interchangeable with my next person.
Okay, so he didn't make the top 10.
Well, no.
Okay,
But he was interchangeable with number 9.
Well, then I feel like then he's solidly at 10.
10, yeah. Because if he's interchangeable with 9, you got to bump Snape out, which still,
Snape's
It's
probably
great.
going to be in here somewhere.
yeah. I have Snape a little bit lower, and I guess we will get to that when we get to there. But I think we have to go like a lock at 10. I think has to be Dobby.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Wow, I did not expect an agreement on the first one. This is impressive.
I mean, you can't say Dobby doesn't deserve recognition because he does. So
Oh, he absolutely does.
we'll argue the rest of them, I'm sure.
All right, well then, I guess we'll go to number 9. I'll start number 9. I had Neville Longbottom at number 9.
Interesting.
That low?
Yeah, he is low. There are my other characters ahead of him. I do love Neville. I think he's been through just as much as Harry has in terms of growing up. You know, he lost his parents, basically lost his parents. They were still there, but they're mentally not. And it could have been him. The movies don't play that out, but the books do, more so than the movies. And he delivers the final blow to Nagini. He's got a lot of comical relief, and you also just feel really bad for him at times too. And I think he is a well-rounded character that a lot of us can relate to. I think where we're this goofy but good-hearted people. And I think that's a lot of the Harry Potter fan base. And I just Matthew Lewis is his name. I think he's played by. He does a great job in the films. And we went on a little rant in our Harry Potter episode about how attractive he is.
He is the definition of a glow up.
Oh, for sure. And I was listening to his podcast with him, and he was just saying, all I did was just stop eating bad food and hit the gym. I was like, oh, if it's that easy.
Really, it was that simple.
Sam, who do you have at number 9?
So I'm probably going to get kicked off this podcast because I have Ronald Weasley at number 9.
Are you kidding me?
Wow,
Ron
that
is
is
like Emily's
high.
favorite character.
We're gonna fight.
But as far as character development goes, for me, I feel like Ron doesn't really get a lot of it. He's pretty much the same goofy, awkward, but loyal, good friend that Harry has for the entire series. And yeah, I mean, he is Harry's like steadfast friend until he gets jealous of Harry or like walks out a few times. But he knows Harry like better than anybody else, and we don't know how Harry's story would have unfolded without Ronald Bilius Weasley right there along the way. But I think it was important that Ron was sort of like the opposite of Harry. Like he grew up in the Wizarding world. He had a huge family that like loved him and cared about his well-being. And they just had like completely different issues that they dealt with growing up. So I think that Ron was always like the go-to character to explain the Wizarding world to us as the audience. But for me, like he's just Ron. Like, there's nothing really crazy awesome about him. He's just pretty neutral, and he's kind of just there to serve as Harry's best friend.
Yeah, I think that's a solid point. What about you, Em? What do you have, Emily? What do you have at number 9?
I have Voldemort at number 9. He's the main
Okay.
antagonist of the entire story, so he deserves to be on this list, I think. He also, though, is this low because he kept getting beat by like an 11-year-old and then a 12-year-old, and then ultimately felt his demise by a 17-year-old wizard. So, like, is he that powerful? Probably not. But he definitely deserves to be on the list. He strikes fear into the heart of many. I think he's a very powerful character. He's also an interesting villain. I have friends who are fans of the series, and he's their favorite character. And I feel like if your favorite character can be a villain as evil and ridiculous as Voldemort, then it's a good character. So.
Very good character.
Yeah.
Those are solid points.
I originally had him as number 9, interchangeable with Ron, but I decided to kick him out and leave Ron on because I was afraid Emily would stop being my friend if I didn't have Ron on.
So initially, I actually didn't have Ron on this list. And I think that might be surprising.
We're on the same wavelength.
I know. Initially, I didn't, but for kind of the same reasons, I actually had him at number 8 because Ron is that added humor in times of, like there's dark times, it's always Ron, but there's also those negative side effects where he's a jealous person. And when it comes to your best friend, you should not let that jealousy get in the way for that long. It's like in Goblet of Fire, Harry needs Ron. He has nobody. He's got Hermione. And besides, like all the other people, like Hagrid and stuff, but he wants his best friend, and he just doesn't get it.
Yeah, because Ron is so just like perturbed that he thinks that Harry somehow betrayed him and got his name in the Goblet of Fire.
Harry, you put your name in the Goblet of Fire.
Which, like, if you know Harry's not going to try to do that, and he would have keyed you in on it if he was.
Exactly. Harry doesn't want that shit.
He's the same way with Hermione, too, in Prisoner of Azkaban. He completely turns his back on her.
Oh, yeah. And same thing in 6. It happens in 6. When with Lavender, he gets all roped up in her, and it's kind of like Hermione, leave me alone, and they have that old jealousy bit that happens. So in terms of Ron's jealousy is his downfall. So we are at a kind of a weird point because we got Voldemort, Ron, and Neville for the number 9 spot.
Well, I can make it a little easier because my number 8 is Neville.
Okay, so ours are interchangeable at 8 and 9, honestly, because I don't have a problem bumping or moving one down. So I can go Ron 9 and Neville 8 very easily.
Okay.
That's fine.
It's Emily. Is that we got Voldemort at 9, and then Emily, who do you have at 8?
I have Book Ginny at 8.
Okay.
All right.
She doesn't get screen time like she deserves, but she's a badass and she can hang with the rest of them. And she's super powerful. When she joins Dumbledore's army, she's one of the most powerful.
Mm-hmm.
And Harry needs a strong partner, and she is that. She's not impressed by him being the chosen one. I mean, yes, she had a girlish crush at the beginning, but he needs a strong equal, and she is that. And I think that it's a shame that we don't see that in the films because
I agree.
As good of an actress as I think Bonnie Wright is, the way that they wrote her character in the movies was an insult to Ginny's character. So.
Yeah.
I completely agree. At 9, what are we going with?
You can put Ron at 9. I will. At least he's on the list.
Yeah, he is because I know it's a big deal for you, right? He's one of your favorites.
He is my favorite kid.
So for good reason, I think Ron can get locked in at number 9.
Wicked.
Mm-hmm.
And we have an agreement from one of his biggest fans.
Arguably his biggest fan.
So I think that's justification for Ron locked in at number 9. So we have me and Sam have Neville at 8 for, I would assume, probably the same reasons that I said.
Yeah.
Unless you want to add anything that you have, Sam.
I think really just his, like you said, his backstory being, if not just as tragic as Harry's, and he was just almost as close to being the chosen one. But I think for me, when it comes to Neville, it's just the fact that he really grows so much as a character, as much as like his appearance changes. Like he changes as a person. Like he's always willing to stand up to his friends and fight for what he's believed in from the very beginning. But he definitely gets a lot more confidence in himself, and he becomes such a badass and should be an inspiration to us all. So
well put.
Yeah.
Very well put. And that's why I love these books and these characters, because they are very uplifting, and I think that anybody can identify with a character in the series.
Yeah, we kind of touched on that on, I guess, a couple podcasts ago for us, that there's literally a character in these books for everyone. It's kind of crazy of how dynamic of a writer she is.
It really is. And to see that it's become such a mass hit too, with still being able to give these characters, because sometimes it gets diluted when you have this many characters and you're telling a story. But to me anyway, the Harry Potter book series and the films as well, it's a solid line. Like there is not no bumps in the story and what J.K. did, and it's really it's super impressive. And also why I'm giving Crimes of Grindelwald the benefit of the doubt, in that it will play out at some point.
This is like Act 2, and Act 3 is going to clear everything up.
Yeah, like
Hopefully.
fucking Aurelius Dumbledore.
They're just going to put the plot back together in the third one. Pick up all the broken pieces and just put it
You know
back.
what? If Game of Thrones can do it, fucking J.K. motherfucking Rowling can do it.
She
Amen.
can. She could do anything.
Are you guys pretty confident with putting Neville at 8? Because I have him at 7.
Oh,
yes, because I have Ginny at 7.
I have Ginny at 7 as well.
What the hell,
Look at
dude?
us,
Get out of my
guys.
head.
It's so easy.
What the fuck? All right, so that all right. This is weird.
I was not expecting it.
No, neither
Just
was
so
I.
everyone knows, like, not even Sam and I talked about our lists really before this. So
Yeah.
No, this is the first time we've talked, other than over email, is right now. So this is creepy, but it's very weird. I think we just became best friends.
I feel like I'm about
Probably
to start
do.
hearing, like, what's that one show, that sci-fi show? Someone do it for me. The like theme song of Twilight Zone. I feel like I'm in the Twilight Zone.
Fair enough.
I'm glad I finally got there. Thanks for helping me out. 0%.
I didn't know what you were talking about. I'm sorry.
You are
Clearly,
entering
my brain
the Twilight
doesn't know
Zone. Boom, boom, boom. All right, so I think we got Ginny at 7.
Yeah.
For everything that you guys said. She's an awesome character. One of the things, it's a small aspect of book 6 that I love, is when she's telling people about the tattoos on Harry's
The
chest,
hypocrite tattoo.
and
Yes.
Ron's got a pygmy puff, and they're like, and when I rewatched part 1, Deathly Hallows Part 1, when they're all getting, they're changing into Harry, Ron goes, "I knew that hippogriff tattoo wasn't real."
Yes. I love that little drop.
I was
See,
like,
I'm
that
really
is
glad
great.
that they put that in there, because they didn't put the humor of that in the 6th movie. So I'm
Mhm.
really glad that they, still in the 7th movies, when J.K. Rowling came back and was like, I'm gonna fix this.
She's like, this is
She-
my favorite part, and
Yeah.
you left it
Yeah,
out.
they put like little Easter eggs in there for us who have like read the books and know what these little quirks are. And
It's
I'm glad you brought that up. It was such a funny moment.
Yeah, I like laughed out loud. Like a lot of the shit that happens in, like Ron says, and like that little line, just it cracks me up. But while we are on the 6th movie, why the fuck did they not include Dumbledore's funeral scene?
I don't know.
That-
there's so much.
Just why
that
didn't they include a
they
lot
did
of it?
wrong.
That's the thing I think bugs me the most. I can deal with them leaving the action out after Dumbledore dies, but it's like that is an emotional scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it
Whatever.
just dies with them
There's-
talking about the locket. And
Yeah.
I don't know. It just doesn't
Nothing
make
was
any
right
sense.
about that movie. There was a couple little things that were like, that's cute, but it's not right.
It's just a fun movie to me. It's in terms of plot and leading up to the epic conclusion, it doesn't really do much.
Well, it shouldn't
Not
be
even
fun.
for me. It
Yeah.
literally
Shouldn't-
just pisses me off. I can't watch that movie because every time I do, I just get angry. And I'm just like, why? Like, how did you think this was going to be okay?
It
I
wasn't.
don't know. I digress.
We could
But yeah,
talk about
I
that
think
all day.
that little
All right.
funny line of Jenny's is very true to her character. Like, she's very feisty, witty. She's a heartbreaker. She's got tons of guys after her all the time. She's
Oh,
an
yeah.
excellent Quidditch player. I mean, she goes pro. And she's just like the feminine tomboy fusion that I feel like every girl, like we said, again, someone relates to any character
Yeah.
in these series. And I definitely found myself relating to Jenny a lot in these books.
And I feel like she could put Harry in his place.
For sure.
For
And
sure.
he needs that.
Yep. And that's what he needs. And that's why I love her. All
But
right.
see, that's sad.
Yeah, so I think we can roll into 6 then. Sam, we might as well just say because we probably have the same one. No, I'm just kidding. Why don't you go first, Emily? We'll let you hear your number 6.
Okay, my number 6 is Lupin. All of these next ones, it was really hard for me to get them in an order, I'll be honest.
Mm-hmm.
But I put Lupin as number 6 just because of my justifications for everyone above him. But he is one of my favorite characters, and I'm going to sound like a broken record from now on. But instrumental to the series, such a good mentor to Harry, such a good character. Like, we recently did an episode about him, and we just went into detail about his life and how much he has overcome and how much he did for the werewolf community.
Oh, for sure.
And yeah, so he's number 6. He can be higher. I know Sam's going to be pissed at me for him being at number 6, but you know what? Maybe payback for Ron. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah.
He did not crack my top 10, and I love him. I do. He's one of my favorite characters in
Great. Well,
this
we're
series.
just going downhill from here.
Yeah, this is all bad.
No longer best friends.
We're done. It was short lived. I will. Sam, who's your number 6?
So this is a tough one for me, guys, and I'm probably going to catch a lot of shit from this, especially from our listeners. But my number 6 is Sirius, and he's my number 6. Like, yes, I get it. Sirius was dealt a rough hand in life, despite being described as ruggedly handsome, and he grew up with some pretty awesome best friends, except the obvious one let down.
Mm-hmm.
But he also grew up in like a devoutly Slytherin pureblood house as a Gryffindor, so he was an outsider in his own home, and his family treated him like shit and resented him for that. And then, fresh out of Hogwarts and new into the Order, he was framed for the murder of 12 innocent people, plus Pettigrew, who framed him for the murder, and then he served 12 years in Azkaban for it, and on top of that, had to deal with the fact that his BFF and his BFF's wife were murdered because of this other friend.
Right.
So
Why is he number 6?
tough break for our man Sirius. But here's my issue: is after he gets out of Azkaban, and he's like, "Hey Harry, I don't know if anyone told you, I'm your godfather." Yeah, I'm sure that like if they would have been given the chance to kind of explore that relationship, he would have been an excellent father figure to Harry, and he did give him some great advice in Goblet of Fire and Order of the Phoenix, but part of me feels like Sirius his love for Harry is very selfish, because I feel like Sirius is a very self-absorbed character. And I know, like, sue me, but the way that he loves Harry, I feel like isn't because he actually loves Harry. He loves that Harry is James's son. And he keeps trying to make Harry be James, like James's replacement in his life. And sometimes he forgets that Harry's still a kid, and he doesn't treat him like he should treat a kid. And he was also a huge fucking bully, and he thought it'd be funny to get Snape killed, and that didn't go away. He still had a lot of bad feelings towards Snape when he was an adult, and that's not the role that you should be setting for Harry. And also, if he hadn't done that, if he had like encouraged Harry to take occlumency lessons harder, one could argue that if Harry had tried harder and had seen the example that Sirius was setting for him, then he would have never gotten Sirius killed by letting Voldemort into his head.
Wow. You made a strong argument there.
I think those are all valid because, I mean, right before he died, he did say, "Nice one, James."
He did.
You know, I mean, definitely good point. I think he did see James a lot in Harry and wanted him to be a replacement. So I buy that.
So, you're right. It is.
You're right, though. Our listeners are going to be pissed.
I know. But, I still think he's a really good character. I just don't think that, like, I don't buy that he was a, like, better person than some of the people.
Sirius is my favorite character. I do not have him as number 1, but he is my favorite character in the series. And to add to what you contributed, the other facts, is in Goblet of Fire, when he is on the run and they bring him food in Hogsmeade.
Mm-hmm.
He says to them, when they're talking about Barty Crouch and Winky, you can judge a man by how he treats his house elf, because how he treats his inferiors. Or he doesn't say those exact words. He said you can tell a man by how he treats his inferiors, and he is god awful to Creature.
Yeah.
And I think that
And Snape.
Yes, and Snape.
Yeah. Well, he considers Snape as an inferior.
Yes, he does.
Yeah, which I don't think Snape is an inferior, but he is awful to him.
Yeah, which I think that you have. I had Sirius at number 3, and you just made a solid argument for why he should be higher on the list. Technically lower on the list at number 6.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's where he belongs.
I think that was a really good argument.
You've done beautifully.
I'm impressed.
I want to clarify, I still love Sirius as a character. I just feel like in the story he has a lot more depth this way, but when it comes to like being a quote unquote good, like all around good person character.
Oh, he's not.
Yeah.
He is, like you said, very selfish. I agree, and self-centered. But I just love him. I just love him.
I know.
Who's your number?
It was really hard for me to do, but also like this whole list was hard. So
yeah, I could tell by the amount of justification you went into why he was at number 6. You won me over. You had me bump him down 3 spots. So my number 6 was Voldemort.
Oh wow.
Yeah. At that. This is tough because I really do think they have such such developed characters and good characters that I think if you go above 5, like 5 through 10 is so interchangeable. Yeah,
I think that we should have an honorable mention for the straggler at the end that we can't quite place.
That is a good idea. So I think we can throw Voldemort in that column right now because we're locking Sirius Black in at number 6.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean that's the way Sam, you won me over, and I think you won Emily over too.
Like I was fine with moving him.
No, because I had him at number 3, and he doesn't belong at number 3.
Yeah, I mean I have him at number 4, but all your reasons are valid. I mean, my reasons, right, are his good qualities. But you're right. And if we're considering this list, we need to consider all qualities, which is why probably Snape was low on my list and didn't make some other lists. You know, I mean, just how it is.
Yeah, and like how Lupin didn't make mine.
And like how Ron is number 9.
Yeah, that's never. I understand you're probably never going to let that go. Why he is number 9.
I won't.
That's fine. That is fine with me. Yeah, so I think we got 6 Sirius Black for everything we said. And we can roll in the 5. I guess I'll go first with 5. I have Snape at 5.
I do too.
Whoa.
You guys
We're
are
back on the same
so
page.
weirdly on the same wavelength.
We are. We really are. And so it's basically 2 against 1 here. But I have Snape on at number 5 just because of kind of everything you said, Emily, and why you had him at 9. He has that always, after all this time, always, like, that's going to put him in the heart of fans and of people. But then it's like, yeah, I think why too, because it's the last book and it's the last movie, and it's like, this is what we're left with of Snape. We're finding out all of this, but hey, there was 6 books where he was an asshole to kids, because of who their parents were, because of who his parents.
And it wasn't just Harry; it was every Gryffindor, pretty much everyone who wasn't in Slytherin.
Everyone who wasn't a Slytherin, yeah. But I mean, like, the entire series, right into his death, and up into his death, at basically the very end, we do actually have like that gotcha moment where we realize that there's more to Snape's character than just being a fucking asshole all the time. Like, we're led to believe that he's just this shady ex-Death Eater with a chip on his shoulder and a personal vendetta for Harry Potter. And yeah, I get it. Child abuse is not okay in any way, shape, or form at all.
Mm-hmm.
But Snape was also abused as a child, and I feel like that's something that, like, you can ask any therapist when you're abused as a child. Like, you kind of present those qualities sometimes when you're an adult, and doesn't make it okay. But I think it kind of explains that, like, he was made to feel like an outcast and a fool all of the time at Hogwarts, and he was constantly wanting acceptance from people who weren't giving it to him. So he takes out all of that on his students by bullying them. And of course he's going to bully Harry, because Harry is the spitting image of the main person who was bullying him all those years.
Who he hated. I mean, James almost had him killed. I mean, if Lily didn't stop that prank.
No, Sirius did. James almost saved him. James saved him.
James found out, and he ran and stopped him. But he was right there with Sirius, like, the whole time.
Yeah. And I get that, and that would probably make you want to hate anything that resembled or had the same traits as that person. But if you love the mother, and I think it's a very complex, not entirely justifiable character trait.
But that's why he's number 5 for me. It's because it's so complex.
Yes.
It's because after hating him for so long, I was made to feel sympathy for him, because we realized that even while he was detesting Harry, he was risking his life the entire time to save Harry, all in Lily's memory. Like, he was loyal to Dumbledore through and through after he promised that he would be to try to save Lily. And he protected Harry until the very end. Like, always. Actually, always.
Yeah.
And he deserves props for that. And actually, Alan Rickman was the perfect portrayal of him.
Yes. They got the casting of, I really think, of 95% of the series completely right. I don't know where you guys fall on that, but he also carried the weight. He had to kill Dumbledore. He had to be the one to openly...
And he had to take all the hate from everybody when they knew that he killed Dumbledore, and they were just like, well, fuck, you were a Death Eater this whole time, and we trusted you. And he knew that everyone was going to, like, never trust him.
Exactly.
And think he was a Death Eater. And he did it anyways, all to save Harry.
And they do... And I know in the book it's different because it's in the hallway, but in the movie, in part 2, when Harry confronts Snape and said, "How dare you stand where he stood?" And that is just like, you're like, this is a great moment, but you're also like, he's wrong. And that's why I enjoy the book better, because Harry pronounces to everyone that Snape was a double agent and doing all of this before he takes down Voldemort, which is also, I understand why it was left out of the movie. I mean, he could have said it when Voldemort was suffering from the Thanos snap. I mean, it's just, but yeah, that's why I have him at number 5. Emily, what do you have?
For number 5, I have Ron.
Okay.
Yes, he has downfalls, but I mean, you guys just ignored all of Snape's downfalls and put him at number 5. So I think he was an extremely loyal person. Yes, everyone has faults, but I think he was a really loyal fan. Harry couldn't have survived without him, because he kept him down to earth and grounded and gave him a family. And Harry didn't have a family before he met Ron, and probably wouldn't have if they hadn't become friends.
That's true.
So that's a big one for me. Also, I just think that he's his own person, and he had to struggle a lot with who he was because he had so many damn siblings and felt kind of cast aside. And lesser than. And I think that anyone navigating that, especially as an 11-year-old kid, it's a lot. And not being able to voice that. But he really grew into it, and he was able to express his emotions eventually and became a really good person. So he's my number 5. But I would agree, for the sake of the list, to put Snape at number 5 because, yes, he did have some redeeming qualities. I think the reason that he is a good character is because everyone has their own opinion about him.
And
like, you guys can love him, but I don't. And I think that that's what makes him a good character.
No, I don't love him.
Yeah, I don't love him
but
either.
I think he deserves to be up there.
I like what I like about him is that after all these years, he's still getting talked about as to his actions.
And it takes a really good character to like flip the minds of 90% of the fan base.
Yeah, I mean, no one saw it coming. Everybody's just like, "Oh shit, I don't want to like Snape."
Also,
but no, I have to like
exactly, and because they make that compelling argument at the end, and also he dies brutally.
Yeah, he does. They don't do that justice
in the movie. I cry. I think they did that actually pretty well.
Yes,
when he died.
Well, I think they could have done it a little bit better, just because I think the location in the book is a lot better.
Well, yeah, I mean that's confusing, but I still think that like the emotion
because he almost died in the
portrays.
Shrieking Shack as a kid.
Yeah.
So I think that it being there was important because as a kid, the prank was actually a foreshadowing.
Yeah.
Because J.K. Rowling is a genius.
Yep. Yeah, she is. So my friend just he saw the movies, but he just finished reading. My co-host Shane just finished reading the books for the first time, and he like while he was reading them, he was like, "Dude, I can't believe this." He's like, "She set this up to cash it out like 10 years later with book 7," and I was just like, "Dude, it's crazy."
It is.
When she writes Snape, like you wouldn't hate him as much if she didn't write him the way that she did, because she makes him seem like such an asshole.
Oh yeah.
Like even the way he looks at people, like I don't know. I don't know. I'm just always going to have mixed feelings about it.
And I think that's why he's such a good character.
Yes, I agree.
I think he's the most complex that we can probably get on this list.
Yeah, he's up there. I have someone that I think is more complex. But I think we all know who that might be. So, Emily, give me your number 4.
My number 4 is Sirius Black.
Okay, so we had him at 6. So I guess for your, you kind of, did you feel like you got everything out why you had him where you had him at number 6? Is there anything else you want to add to why you maybe had him at 4?
No, not really. He was just, gave Harry the opportunity to have a dad. Mm-hmm. And I just love his character for all the reasons you kind of said. Yeah. But I do think he belongs lower because, as Sam pointed out, he was kind of a hypocrite. So
yeah, he is the best in us and the worst in us, I think, to some degree.
Exactly.
Yeah. Sam, what did you have at number 4?
I have Dumbledore at number 4.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I'm kind of shocked that he hasn't come up yet, but I think that Dumbledore is just a badass motherfucker, and he's Harry's ultimate mentor and hero the entire series. And he pretty much has it all figured out. He's kind of like Machiavelli in this series. And he has his own long redemption arc that he's fighting for a long time to try to right his wrong from his past, which we know was his sister ultimately getting killed. And he's never let go of that guilt that he felt for his sister's death.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like his entire arc is just like trying to redeem himself, and he's afraid of his power after that moment. So he knows that he's super powerful and he's the only wizard that Voldemort ever feared. And he knows it for a good reason. But in spite of all of that, he doesn't really want to fight unless he has to, which I think is like, the just like definition of a hero and someone who should be in charge is someone who doesn't want to have the power, but does because he did want it. But then he saw the effects of it, and now he's like, well, fuck, I don't want to do that.
Absolutely.
But he also deeply cared for everyone in his life, and he believed that everyone deserved a second chance. Yeah. And at his core, I think that he was a lover, not a fighter, and he kind of showed Harry how to be, and he taught him a lot, and I don't think that we would have ever defeated Voldemort if
Dumbledore hadn't kind of been pulling some of the strings. And plus, he's wacky as hell and he's fabulous, and I love him.
I do love him too. I will save, I guess, when I get to him. Because I have him a little bit further down. And I want to, yeah. So, and Emily, is he anywhere on the rest of your list?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we can get him. So we have Dumbledore, and we have Emily. Did you said you're number 4, right?
Yeah, Sirius.
Sirius, right? So we have Dumbledore, Sirius, and I have Hermione. And she. The more I talk with you guys, the more I realize that there are probably some holes in this list, because she would have been dead a lot of times without her. And she is a badass. She is an awesome person, and like everyone in the series, she's someone you want to be. She's that smart know-it-all, but also a lovely and brilliant person, and just a fucking badass. She's always ready for everything. She knows everything. I can easily budge on her to like number 2. Like I could bump her down to number 2 because, again, she does provide some humor here and there, and just some great moments in the series, and some unexpected ones as well. Like in Goblet of Fire when she's the one with Crumb, a little unexpected at first, but yeah, I'm assuming you guys have her a lot lower.
Yeah. I think we should wait to rank these next ones until we all justify, because I think that we all have the same characters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
left.
Probably.
Well, not me. My number 3 is not your all's, I'm sure, because one of you already said him. One of you said he's not on your list. So,
but also with Hermione too, she comes from a Muggle family, and to be the best student in her class is so impressive. To come from a non-magic background and to just save it's super impressive. She's an excellent character, and it's interesting to see the side of jealousy come out of her in Half-Blood Prince. So she has that level. She's not as complex to me personally. I think she's a very well put together character. So yeah, that's who I have it for. I agree. We should probably hear everyone's out before we settle on where we put, I guess, 4 to the end, like 1 through 4.
Yeah,
I think that's a good idea.
Because I think we're all gonna have like intense justifications at why we place these characters where they are, but also I think probably the rest of the characters deserve a top 4 spot. So you can't really go wrong, I don't think, at this point on.
Yeah. So I want to hear, Sam, you said that your number 3 is not like ours, so I would like to hear it.
Yeah, my number 3 was Remus Lupin.
Okay.
He is probably, clearly he's in my top 3 favorite characters. And I've already discussed at length on our podcast why I adore Lupin so much. But to summarize, basically, he's the purest, kindest person in the series. He is a true, steadfast friend, despite how bitter he has every right to be at the world, because he kind of just got a shit hand dealt to him in life. Like, as a child, he was bit by a werewolf, and he's had to suffer with this his entire life. And we kind of related it back to having like a disease, maybe like leprosy or AIDS or something that like the general public makes you feel like there should be like a stigma and a shame around it. And that's kind of what is shown in these books. And he kind of like portrays that. But even after all of that and undergoing such stigma and hate from the rest of the wizarding world, he is still such a giving and kind and extremely gifted person. And he's the best defense against the dark arts teacher that they've ever had.
Amen.
And he's kind of a depressed loner, which you don't see a lot of. And one of the like aspects of like people who are depressed and lonely is that they don't really see how great that they are, which is tragic, right? Because you need to love yourself. And he doesn't really love himself, but he has so much love for everybody else. And I just think that he is the best marauder, and he was the best role model that Harry had before he died, on how to just be a good man.
Yeah, they did him dirty by taking him with Teddy by
Right.
taking both
Come full
his
circle.
parents from him. It's bullshit. But
Yes and no. I mean, it had to be a mirror.
yes,
So
I agree.
it makes sense. But yeah, I agree. It was very unfair because those are two of our favorite characters, hands down. So.
Yeah. I do like in Deathly Hallows when he shows up to Grimmauld Place and Harry kind of puts him in his place and saying, "What the hell are you doing here?"
Yep.
This is the one moment that I can't redeem Lupin for, is he kind of has...
He's scared.
He has a freak out moment. Yeah.
Well, right? Like, everyone in these stories is complex, and I think it's good of her to show a human moment.
Yeah, that may be the one of the most human moments. It's someone that's terrified that they're having a child.
Very real.
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
So,
And it's awesome. And yeah.
But I realize that I probably just have a personal connection to him, so if you guys don't want him...
Well,
in
I
there-
had Sirius at 3, and I think that's my personal connection character. So I can understand why you have Lupin where you have him.
Okay. Well,
yeah.
shall we just keep moving and see
Yeah.
what we circled?
Yeah,
for?
and
Yeah, let's keep moving.
Emily, who did you have at 3?
I had Dumbledore at
Okay.
3. So he was obviously instrumental in this entire series. He planned Harry's life for him, basically, and was the greatest mentor I think Harry could have asked for. Was he perfect? No. But none of us are. And I think, again, similarly to Snape, I think he's the most complex character in this series, just because he has so many layers that we don't even know about.
Mhm.
And we didn't know about, and we're finding out slowly, and we even are finding out more now, even if we're not asking for it, from J.K. Rowling. So
True.
I love him. I think he's fabulous. I think he's everything a teacher should be. He's compassionate, encouraging, and he believes 13-year-old kids when no one else will, and he sees the potential in the next generation, and I think that's so empowering because unfortunately, a lot of times adults, and especially older adults, don't see the value in children and see the value in their ideals, even if they are crazy. And like, Sirius Black is innocent. Like, he's right. No one would believe them except for him.
Yeah.
So
He is the most...
I just think that he's just the sweetest character. And yes, he has downfalls, but who doesn't? And he's also human. And he represents a group of people who are underrepresented in a lot of major franchises, and I think that is something that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, I did like in terms of that how they didn't bluntly, but they basically referenced it in Crimes of Grindelwald with the mirror and the holding the hand and that blood pact, which for anyone who is familiar with the series knows that you can interpret from that there is definitely some passion there, but I agree. I think they need to just embrace it for what it is, because that's how she always saw the character.
I mean, she didn't make it so that it was a distracting thing, so that anyone could identify to him, right? Yeah. But I think it's important that he represents a group of people that, again, are underrepresented in a lot of things, and he is a strong, arguably one of the most strong wizards ever.
Yeah.
And, he's gay, and it's awesome. And,
For sure. Great argument. And very valid. And I completely agree. So what about, let's roll into number 2 then. And then I think we can break down the final four. We can make it a final 4 and go from there once we get through everyone's 2 and 1 and 2s. So Sam, why don't you tell me who you have at number 2?
Sure. I have Hermione Jean Granger at number 2. And for all the reasons that you pointed out earlier, there's really no explanation necessary. Like, she's a role model for all young girls. She's not without her faults, though, which makes her such a great character. She's an amazing friend, and not just to Harry and Ron, but we also see her be a great friend to Ginny and Hagrid and Neville and Luna. She's very compassionate and sticks up for the little guys, especially the house elves. And besides that, like you said, she came from a Muggle home, and she's still the brightest witch of her age. And she eventually becomes Minister for Magic. She does it all. But I think an important thing about Hermione is the fact that we kind of see through her eyes the not racism as we know it, but racism, like blood racism with them in this series. She's the mudblood, right? And that's kind of how J.K. Rowling touches on racism and how like extremely uncalled for and just awful that people who came from Muggle homes were treated. And the fact that she was the best witch to come out of that, I think, says all that it has to.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. So at my number 2, I had Harry as number 2.
Me too.
Finally, we have one.
You guys, finally.
Yeah, Harry, for all the reasons, is number 2. He is strong. Sometimes his courage is so blind and it's just sometimes dumb courage as well. He's just willing to go in, kind of head first, and he's always willing to go that extra mile for the other person to save everyone. I mean, he literally gives up his own life to save the wizarding community, which that may be the bravest moment. He accepts death, and I absolutely love that moment in the book and in the movie too, when he brings everyone back, and he's just accepted his fate, and he knows what it is. I mean, but the best part about Harry is that he could not do it alone. He would have been so fucked if it was just him. And that's why I think he is a solid number 2. I mean, he's lovable. We all can relate to him. He's been through so much trauma. He's lost every father figure he had. I don't count Hagrid as a father figure. I always count Hagrid more as a friend.
Yeah.
And just literally, there's not many people that I know that could go through what Harry went through and come out okay. So he's very strong. So that was my argument for him.
Yeah, my argument is very similar. Through our reread of this series, it's been really cool to rediscover Harry's sassy side.
Yeah.
Which is like the best because he has the best one-liners of the whole series that, there are actually some in the movies, rewatching them, but in the books there are so many more. A lot of our listeners, I've said before, Harry is not my favorite character, and he's not, but he is the ultimate hero. Like RP said, he doesn't do it alone because he isn't perfect and he recognizes that about himself. But when the time comes, he's ready to sacrifice himself and sacrifice everything for the greater good, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, I think Harry deserves to be at 1 or 2 because it's Harry Potter. It's not about anyone else.
Right.
Obviously. But also because he just is such a great hero and he's not perfect. And I think the way that she wrote him is poetic because, yes, he has been through a lot of trauma, but he still treats everyone with inherent dignity and respect for the most part. And, he has his downfalls, obviously, but he does. And he's accepting of people and he takes people under his wing like Hagrid and Luna and Ron and Hermione and Neville. And the list can go on and on and on.
It's really impressive because he handles that. He knows that people are out there dying. For him, essentially. They are dying for him. I mean, they're dying for the rest of the wizarding world, which they say, Ron kind of says to him, it's not about him. It's about saving the rest of which I'm pretty sure he says that. It's about saving the rest of the wizarding community. I mean, it's not just about Harry. And that's just a lot to handle in itself, being the chosen one and what have you. And I think he does a really great job.
And he does it so gracefully, I think. And he has his quirks, right? Like, but I am the chosen one. But, he's also a teenager and he's having to deal with all of this. Like, he gets introduced to the wizarding world and then literally his first year of school, someone's trying to kill him. Like, what?
Every year.
Like, this kid has some, this kid is so strong and so resilient. And I think, he's just the perfect hero. And yes, he has his downfalls and yes, he's sometimes annoying, but we wouldn't want him any other way, So.
Right. So for all of those reasons that you all pointed out, that is why Harry Potter was my number 1.
That's fair.
So if you all listen to our show, you know that Emily and I sometimes shit on Harry. But
it's easy to do. He sets himself up.
It's rightfully deserved, I would say.
But like you all said, like he is a far cry from perfect, but I strongly believe that's what makes him the perfect hero. And if he weren't the most relatable character, he wouldn't be the top of this list. It wouldn't be Harry Potter and the fill in the blank. Yeah, I mean, he's the namesake of this entire story. If we didn't have Harry Potter, we wouldn't have a story. And he may not be my absolute favorite character, but he's pretty damn close. I mean, he deals the best that he fucking can with all of this shit, especially with losing his parents and growing up in an abusive household, just burden after burden. And he's just like, all right, what else do you got? And he just fucking performs every single time. And yeah, like he's willing to die for it. Like he's the chosen one. He's the prince that is promised. He is the prophecy fulfilled. Like I don't think that you can't not put him at number one. And like, so what if he's angsty and gets a little sad? He has the fucking right to.
Yeah.
I love his sass. It is his redeeming quality.
His sass is great. There's so many, like you said, dude, there's just so many great moments where you realize, you know, maybe not on your first read through, but on your second read through, where Harry is just sass. He's just sassy ass. Like it is great, and it's funny, and it works. And he's justified at being the number one spot for sure. However, I have Albus Dumbledore at number one for everything that you guys have said, and I just think he is I think he's the most complex character in this series because of what he went through, and he's always dealing with that grief of his sister and trying to make everything good. But then they also, I struggle with it every time I read book 7. How should I perceive Dumbledore? Is he this kind of narcissistic person who raised a pig to slaughter but then ended up caring for the guy, or was that all kind of blown out of proportion? And I absolutely love him. I completely agree with everything you guys have said. He is a sweetheart. He cares about everyone. He listens and he believes in these kids. And he does at some point knows that he can get people to do things for him as well. Yeah. So I love him. I think he's one of my favorite Harry Potter characters. I think probably one of the best characters in all of fiction.
Yeah.
And he is just he's so powerful, and he just accepts being the headmaster at Hogwarts when he could probably rule at the Ministry and do a lot of things. And he held all 3 of the Deathly Hallows as well. Yeah. And it's just, that's why I have him at number 1. But at this point, I think, I know you guys have him at 3 and 4. At this point, 1 through 4 are interchangeable, I think, except for maybe Harry. And I want to hear what Emily has to say coming in at number 1.
Well, just to make a slight comment about Dumbledore, this is the one thing I really like about Crimes of Grindelwald, is that we get to see him do the same thing he did with Harry for Newt. And he roots for the underdog, and I think that's another reason to love him. Because, Newt was weird, and he cared more about animals than anything else. And Dumbledore was like, cool. Like, do it. Follow your passion. And I think that's what we need in teachers, right? So, yeah.
Well,
okay, so my number 1... Oh, what were you saying?
Sorry. I was just going to say, like, you just brought it up, RP, when you were talking about, like, how do I feel about Dumbledore, about, like, raising a pig to slaughter, whatever. I think that might go back to Dumbledore's root in the belief for the greater good before that belief kind of, like, demolished everything that he loved and cared for. But I think he still believes that to an extent, clearly, because he knew that Harry had to die for the greater good. He didn't know that Harry was going to make it out alive, but he still loved and cared for Harry that entire time. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword with Dumbledore, which is why he was so complex, like you said.
He also, I have the big problem with him is in Order of the Phoenix with how distant he is from Harry. After Harry just witnessed Voldemort come back and kill a fellow classmate in this tournament. Also, he let him compete in the tournament, which is...
Well, yeah, I think he knows that Voldemort is he's made the connection that Voldemort's kind of taking over Harry's brain sometimes.
I think he also doesn't, the argument could be made that he doesn't really put Harry in any position where he's not hovering around that Harry can't handle.
Very true.
Again, I think that goes back to him believing in, the power of the next generation. Like, he always shows up when Harry needs him. Like, down in the Chamber of Secrets, Fawkes came down. But
after Harry dies, he shows up.
Right, but down when he faces Quirrell, who shows up to save his ass? Dumbledore. I mean, he's always there when Harry actually really needs him.
And he laid it out when they searched for the Horcruxes, too. Like, he gave him the Tale of Beetle and the Bards. He gave him the Golden Snitch. Like, he had it all planned out. That's why I said he's like Machiavelli.
And that's why I love him.
I could definitely put him in my top 3 and bump Lupin up.
Yeah.
For sure. I think in the, in the 5th one, like you said, that was meant to piss everyone off, I think, because it's through Harry's mind.
Well, you feel betrayed by it a little bit.
He didn't want to put him through any more danger and mess up the plan, because if Voldemort, God forbid, got into Dumbledore's mind or found out his ultimate plan, it would have all been screwed.
My standpoint is that if you care about Harry, you could be getting him messages through other people or be like, but exactly, you don't want to tip your hat. But it's just like, hey man, I can't talk to you right now, something. But that's just not realistic to the story. But yeah, I agree. I do agree. So your number 1?
My number 1, I'm sure, does not come as a shock to anybody. But my number 1 is Hermione Granger. As I've read the series, my 20 plus times reading the series, she is the ultimate character that I identify with 110%. She is incredibly dynamic, and I think doing the deep dive has made me fall back in love with her, because she, in the 3rd book, as we talked about on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, she isn't perfect, and she storms out of classes and she realizes her breaking point, and she's human. And I think that's not something that people really realize about her, but it's one quality that I love about her, is that she knows when she's like, I've had enough. I've taken on too much. But also she saves 2 boys' asses. Mm-hmm. She is the definition of a badass woman. She needs no man. She becomes the minister of fucking magic. I could go on and on and on, but she deserves to be, I think, in the top 3, just because she's incredibly dynamic through this entire series.
So at our number 1s, we all have probably the 3 strongest characters. We have Harry, Albus, and Hermione. Those are our individual number 1s. This is a good final 4. I will say that. So at 4, we have Sirius, Dumbledore, and Hermione ranked. I think the clear choice for how we all played out with number 3, 2, and 1 would be 4 would have to be, since Sirius doesn't count, and Sirius is out of that because we ranked him at 6.
I think
Lupin?
4 should be Lupin.
Yeah.
Because I have him at 6 and Sam has him up there. So I think that...
Yeah.
But I'm fine with moving him to...
it's not... I didn't have him on my list for reasons that I didn't love him, but you guys both made strong, valid points to why he is such a good character. He saves Harry. If Harry doesn't know the Patronus charm, Harry and Sirius are both dead in book 3, mm-hmm. and I think that is a super strong argument, and I'm totally cool with sliding him in there at number 4 if you both are.
Yeah,
all right.
Sounds good to me.
Easy enough. Now number 3, this is where we get a little... This is where it's going to get crazy, because the only one left would be that we had Dumbledore at number 3. I think, Sam, did you have Dumbledore at number 4 on your list, or was that Emily?
She had him at 4, I believe.
Lupin so was I believe...
Sorry.
Lupin was 3 on yours, right?
Yeah, Lupin was 3 on mine, Dumbledore was 4, but I'm good with Dumbledore being...
Yeah, I think the way that this played out is that Dumbledore kind of has to be 3, because Harry and Hermione have to be the numbers 1 and 2.
Yeah, I agree.
And it hurts me to put Dumbledore at number 3, but these characters are just so dynamic and frankly amazing that the 1, 2, and 3 could arguably be interchanged. And I think Dumbledore is a good lock at number 3.
But you know, happiness can be found even in the darkest of times. If one only remembers to turn on the light.
All right, so here's the final. I think we have 2, Hermione and Harry left. And we both...
I'm good with moving Harry
Number
up
1?
to number 1. Because I think that's what the whole series revolves around him. So I think that he deserves to be number 1.
I do agree with that because
Thank you, Emily. I know that was really difficult for you to say.
he makes...
I mean, again, not as difficult as Ron being number 9.
That one
but
hit you hard, I know. But yeah, it's Harry's story. It's all these other parts, but it's all surrounded by Harry. End of the day, Harry makes his sacrifices. He gives up his life, and he's ready to save everyone else. He always is worried about everyone else. He's always worried about taking down Voldemort when nobody else believes him. He's the, like you guys said, he is the ultimate hero. And I think that is justified at number 1.
But I am the chosen one.
Yeah.
dude,
we did
it. We did not think we were going to be able to do this.
So is our list, let me just recap real quick. We've got 10
Yes.
Dobby, 9 Ronald Weasley, 8 Neville Longbottom, 7 Ginny Weasley, 6 Sirius Black, 5 Severus Snape, 4 Remus Lupin, 3 Albus Dumbledore, 2 Hermione Granger, 1
Harry Potter. Yep, at number 1.
Harry Potter. Hey guys, you know what? I think I
pretty good
won.
list.
I think I won this list.
Okay, this
because-
was not a competition.
Well, the only one that changed for me were my 3 and 4. I alternated. So I did the best arguing, I think.
I will say that if Sam thinks she won the list, then I think I have to too, because we had a lot of the same. All right, so let's have an honorable mention then. Who isn't in your top 10, but is just a lovable character that you just love. You don't have to have strong points of why you love them, but you do.
All right. Well, I love Luna Lovegood because that bitch is not afraid to be herself. And I think that's so refreshing. And she's the anti-Hermione. She doesn't go by the book. She believes what she wants to believe, and she's unapologetic, and that's that. And she does not give a fuck.
Yeah.
And I think that we can all take a lesson out of her book, and I think she at least deserves an honorable mention. I don't think she's in the top 10, but I do think she deserves an honorable mention.
For sure. I mean, there's so many people that it was hard for me to leave out of the top 10. I was like, can we do a top 25? Because this is too hard. But I also love Luna. But one character that I also really love is Bellatrix. Because she is just so like fucking terrifying, but also you're so intrigued, like what is she gonna do next? And I think a lot of that stemmed from Helena Bonham Carter playing her so well in the movies, that she was just like the embodiment of what Bellatrix was. And I think she is like a force to be reckoned with. Like she is the anti-Molly Weasley, right? So like I don't know. She's just a character that I don't love her, but I think that she's a great character.
And she kills Sirius, so that's a
I mean,
she gets her.
She does.
I mean,
yeah, she.
Molly Weasley, another character who deserves an honorable mention. I mean, the mother of this
they
entire.
all deserve honorable mentions.
Yes, all these women who deserve an honorable mention.
You bring 2 strong females onto your podcast. So
it's cool, man. I agree. They are fantastic characters. But for me, my honorable mention is a package deal. Is the Weasley twins. They bring so much humor, and they are just fantastic, and they're played great in the movies I'm blanking on their names.
Oliver,
and
Phelps.
James,
or the Phelps.
Yeah, so that's my honorable mention. They even being in Universal and their joke shop is just like, it's so cool. Everything about it is just fantastic. So this was a lot of fun, and I appreciate you guys doing it. where can
Thank you for
Absolutely,
having us
yeah.
on here. So fun.
where can people who don't listen to your podcast, where can they find you?
You can find us on social media at HP Half Drunk on Instagram and Twitter, and Harry Potter and the Half Drunk podcast on Facebook. We also have a website, hphalfdrunk.com, that has all of our episodes and all of our drinks of the week. And then we're really found wherever you can listen to a podcast.
Yeah, iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, Podbean, Himalaya, iHeart, all of them. You can find us anywhere at Harry Potter and the
Awesome.
Half Drunk podcast.
And for people who don't listen to previously recorded, you can find us also on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much anywhere as well. We are not up to the level of iHeartRadio, so that's pretty cool. We are on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram, all at Previously Are. So yeah, just look out for our stuff, and if you liked what you heard, come over to our podcast and vice versa. So yeah, Sam and Emily, I want to thank you guys again. This has been a ton of fun, and maybe we can do it again sometime.
Yeah, thank you.
I
Enjoy
will.
your
It was
butterbeer.
delightful.